Which of this year's Oscar nominees once made out with George Clooney just before being attacked by an invisible bear?
Ooh, I know.
I know you do, but we've got plenty of great stories. Welcome to the Fright Club podcast. This edition, Skeletons in the Closet. This is going to be fun.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we're from madwolf.com. And welcome to this month's Fright Club. Yeah, because everybody has one of those, at least most big-time actors. You look back on their resume, and it's a lot of fun to look at the movies that they started out in. And some of them are pretty bad.
Yeah, no, it's funny. This is a particular fun, guilty pleasure interest for me. I've always been a little obsessed with this, and I've sort of collected over the years a lot of these skeletons in the closet. And actually, about a year ago, I started writing a blog for screenrelish.com called Skeletons in the Closet. Once a month, I just go back and we look at some of the early, often horrible work of big A-list actors in horror films.
And you know what? That's a great title for that blog. Who thought of that?
I don't remember.
I come up with the titles. You
of
do
everything.
You do the heavy lifting. I'm the title guy. But no, it is a lot of fun because I've done this too for years. Just if I catch an old movie, on the whatever, Late Show or whatever, and I see the credits, I will stay till the very end of the credits just to see who played doorman number 2.
Exactly.
And how often it's somebody you've heard of.
Oh, yeah. And every year when the Oscar nominees come out, because so many of the biggest people, Leonardo DiCaprio, Critters 3, Brad Pitt, Cutting Class, so often the Oscar winners and nominees, they've got some skeleton in their closet.
And what's the one, I know Tom Hanks had one.
He Knows You're Alone.
Wasn't that his very first one?
It was.
Or one of the very...
It was. It was a bad slasher.
He Knows You're Alone.
Yeah, it was like a bride stalker slasher. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. One of the things I love about this is it's so often when the guy who's going to eventually be an A-lister, when he's finally on screen for 5 seconds, you're like, oh, acting. Look at that.
Yeah.
And
Isn't
that's
that
the case
amazing?
with a couple of the ones that we'll talk about today.
Now, not always, because you've mentioned to me before how bad Brad Pitt is. I've never seen Cutting Class.
Yeah, he's absolutely terrible in it. And, it does happen sometimes where they haven't discovered their talent yet. I'm not sure. It does happen sometimes.
Well, you're right.
Clooney is in a million. That guy slugged it out in B-movie hell for a long time before he became George Clooney. So we revisit him pretty often in our Skeletons in the Closet blog.
But it is so true that you'll see one of these people, and even before, like you said, you knew who they were. Oh, that guy.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
that girl.
Uh-huh.
That one. They know what they're doing.
They stand out a little bit. And that's especially true of one of the ones we'll talk about today. But when we combed through the Oscar nominees this year, a lot of them have made horror films. Reese Witherspoon has made a couple, including, of course, the all-time glorious American Psycho.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's great in that. Michael Keaton was in White Noise a few years ago, and then Eddie Redmayne, actually, I love Eddie Redmayne. I have loved him for years and years. And
right now, you'd probably have to say that the best actor is probably this year a toss-up right now between Eddie Redmayne and Michael Keaton.
I would think so.
Eddie Redmayne just picked up the SAG Award,
yeah.
So... I'd say the momentum is with him right now.
No, I think you're right. They both got Golden Globes for Best Actor because they split that up between comedy and drama. But as we've talked about a lot of times, there's a ton of overlap in the voting population, Screen Actors Guild and the Academy. And so, I think that he may have the edge, Eddie Redmayne.
Now,
and he was in a horror film a few years ago called Black Death, which is not terrible, actually.
That.
Yeah, it was a very small, minor British film by the same guy who directed Severance, which I know you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Sean Bean is in it, so it's obviously set in the Middle Ages, because when is he ever in a modern film?
Brace yourself.
But Eddie Redmayne was great in it, and so those aren't the ones we're going to talk about, because those aren't skeletons. There's nothing to be really ashamed of there. They're not bad enough.
We need it to be bad.
That's right.
So bad it's almost good and fun to look at, if you can take it. But that's what qualifies as a skeleton in the closet. And like you said, so many of the actors have them, and so many this year of the Oscar nominees have them. So that's where we're going to focus today. So where are we starting?
Well, I thought we would start with probably the one most people are familiar with, because it's part of a very fun and famous franchise of films. Patricia Arquette, her screen debut, or big screen debut, was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warrior.
I won't let you die. I won't let you. I'm going to dream you into a beautiful dream. Forever and ever.
All right, and that is the scene where she is holding Nancy.
That's right. We're not going to say what happened to Nancy in case they haven't seen it.
Okay, we won't. But that came out in 1987, and that you say that was her debut.
It was her big screen debut.
Because honestly, I remember seeing the first Nightmare on Elm Street, but then I lost complete track. I don't know how many there have been, who've been in what. I know Johnny Depp was in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, I do. I know all those things.
I know you do.
But they're actually, as a franchise, it doesn't have a ton of big names. Some of them do, and this does not. Obviously, Johnny Depp, he made his big screen debut in the first one. And then he turns into a big puddle of mush, which is really unfortunate. And then he comes back in the fifth one. It's like a meta film. Anyway, but other than that, Patricia Arquette is probably the biggest star in any of the rest of the series. And by the third installment, I think funds and inspiration had really run kind of dry, and it's set in a hospital ward for kids who have terrible nightmares. And Nancy from the first episode, Heather Langenkamp, who's a terrible, terrible actor.
Not good.
No, and she's getting her master's degree or her PhD or something anyway in like sleep studies or something, and she comes to this hospital and she realizes that it's Freddie. Freddie's visiting these kids. And so she slowly and in a very wooden manner tries to help them all survive Freddie. And I'll tell you what, she doesn't do a very good job. A lot of people die. A lot of people die in this one. And actually, one of the things that I love about this movie, when it first came out, it had an X rating.
Really?
And it's funny because if you watch it now, you're like, really? But there is one sequence where a kid who makes puppets, in his dreams, Freddie pulls the kid's veins out of his arms and feet, and Freddie uses those to make the kid behave like a puppet, which is pretty gross. Yeah. Other than that, I cannot imagine what it is about this movie that was so appalling to the ratings board in 1987.
It was X strictly for violence. There was no sexual...
No, there's no sex in it.
Okay. Wow.
No.
To get an X for violence, you got to get up there.
Yeah, and I would say it doesn't. It's my thought. And it's one where, Patricia Arquette, in Boyhood, which is one of our favorite films of the year, if not our favorite film of the year.
Yeah, so good. If you haven't seen Boyhood, certainly not, a horror film by any means. It's so great. It leaves you with such a great feeling at the end. And
she's magnificent.
She's great in it. And I think she is pretty much of a lock this year, don't you think? She's going to win.
She's certainly the front runner.
Yeah, I really believe she's going to win, and well deserved. The movie is so great. So well put together and well directed, and she definitely deserves that nomination, probably the win. And then you go look back over her career, and she's had some memorable roles, of course. Alabama in True Romance. You want to talk about some violence?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Alabama in True Romance with Christian Slater. And let's go back to Brad Pitt and maybe the greatest stoner scene of all time where he's watching the Flintstones. And James Gandolfini comes to, and he's so high that James Gandolfini, as a hitman, just doesn't kill him because why bother?
Right,
this
exactly.
guy is so high.
He's no threat to us. Oh, my God.
But we're getting off topic here, but that's great. But True Romance is one of her memorable roles. And even going back to a movie like Ed Wood.
Oh, yeah.
Which Johnny Depp, which I enjoyed a lot. I don't know how many people saw that movie.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people did.
Martin
Landau
got the Oscar nomination. Well, he won that year, didn't he?
He stole what most people thought was going to be Sam Jackson's Oscar for Pulp Fiction. Came out the same year as Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
and it's a great movie, and I think horror movie fans ought to check it out because, especially if you like bad horror, because it's about Ed Wood, the greatest bad horror director ever.
Yeah.
Until Yui Bowl.
Yeah. So, and that's another one of her memorable roles, but she's got quite a long resume. And
you wouldn't, I think, like we were saying earlier, a lot of times you'll see a star in one of these movies and think, oh, yeah, she's going to go. I'm not sure you really think that here. She's certainly not the worst performer in the film.
But nothing that jumps out.
No.
Yeah, she definitely honed her craft as it went along.
Yes. Agreed.
Culminating with this year. So please see Boyhood. All right, that was from 87, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. And you know what? 87 might have been a high point because there's another great one in 87.
Oh, like the best. It is one of the best bad movies of all time. Grizzly 2.
Yeah. That was a rabbit.
I'm out of here, guys. Have a good night.
Okay.
All right, if you can pick out all the voices in that clip, it's not only George Clooney and Laura Dern, but Charlie Sheen is the third wheel in that movie. And that scene is just before Charlie Sheen goes off on his own into the woods, leaving Clooney and Laura Dern to get snugly in the sleeping bag before the unseen Grizzly comes calling, which is the hilarious thing about this movie.
Yeah, it's the movie was actually filmed in 1983. It was never released until 87, and funds kind of ran out and dried up. But I think the fact is that by 87, some of the people who were in the movie were now known entities. So they kind of pushed it out, at least to the VHS market, to see if they could make some bucks back. But they, there is, if you sit all the way through this movie, and if you do, you deserve a medal. But if you sit all the way through it, at the end, during the concert, because they're all camping for a big 80s synth pop rock concert. Anyway, there's a grizzly bear at the end that they show, and he's clearly a big, stuffed, not moving grizzly bear with his arms up in the air and his mouth open. Kind of picture like a Scooby-Doo episode, like...
No, you know what it reminded me of? Remember that scene in Patrick Swayze's the Bouncer movie?
Roadhouse,
where they all go to Ben Gazzara's house, and he's got that big stuffed bear, and the fat guy is so scared of it, and they push it on him, and he, dies of a heart attack.
I guess so. But I think it might have been that same bear. So at the very
bear
end,
was great.
At the very end, you'll hear the raw, and then they just show this clear puppet, just this standstill bear, and they make a raw noise, and then somebody stabs it, and it doesn't because it's a puppet. It's ridiculous. But during the whole first 2/3 of the film, when all of the attacks happen, they don't show the bear at all. And it's not like a Jaws tactic where it's like the less you see, the better. I mean, they just cut to black where you would see the bear's side of the attack. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. So in the scene that we just played for you, in a moment, Laura Dern, they just show Laura Dern and George Clooney screaming very believably, and then they never show anything happen to them or what they're screaming about.
Right.
You just sort of surmise, oh, are they dead? And then a second later, Charlie Sheen shows back up, and then he runs away screaming, but you don't really know why.
So let's make a movie about a killer grizzly bear. Well, how are we going to get the grizzly? Oh, let's not worry about it. And one of the things you also heard in that clip was Michael Jackson's Billie Jean playing on the tape deck. And if you're wondering, did they have rights to put Billie Jean in that movie? I'm guessing the answer is no.
That's my guess as well. I want to point out, there's actually a clip where you can hear the dialogue better, but George was so preoccupied by whether or not they had the rights to listen to or to play Billie Jean. And I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they didn't. We went with that one.
They're probably hoping if they sue us, that was what? You said 84, 83? So Michael Jackson
87 at the time.
The biggest thing going
when they
on.
filmed it. Oh,
if
exactly.
Michael Jackson sues us, that's the best thing that could happen
to
us.
It's just going to actually, in lieu of marketing dollars, we'll get heard of.
What are you going to do, take all our profits from this movie? So, at that point, everything is out the window. So you've got George Clooney, an Oscar nominee and an Oscar winner already, and Laura Dern, who's been an Oscar nominee before this for
Ramblin' Rose. And then Charlie Sheen, who at the time this movie came out, that would have been around Platoon time. He'd already been in a film called The Wraith, which is another bad horror movie. But so by the time they put this movie out, those three who die inside of two scenes, they might be the reason that this ever came out, to tell you the truth.
So Laura Dern this year, if you haven't seen Wild, she is nominated as she plays Reese Witherspoon's free-spirited mother, and you get the idea that she is kind of the reason that Laura Dern's character, who is based on a real person, got her wanderlust, so to speak. And it's a really nice role, really nice performance. We don't think she's going to win. We just said that because Patricia Arquette probably. But it's nice, and it's another reminder of what a long and respected career she's had.
Oh yeah, Laura Dern is always great, and my two favorite of her roles were both the David Lynch films, Blue Velvet, and then I love Wild at Heart. I love her in Wild at Heart.
Yeah,
but she's Lula.
And you got to mention
you're dangerously cute.
We have to mention, if you look back on one of her early roles, she was in a movie called Teachers.
Oh, right.
Which we are based here in Columbus, Ohio, and that movie was filmed here.
That's right. Nick Nolte, an old Nick Nolte.
Yeah,
film.
Nick Nolte, and there were many stories about Nick Nolte hitting the bars on High Street when he filmed that. But it was filmed at the old Central High School, which has since been torn down and stands where the new Center of Science and Industry is. Mm-hmm. Anyway, a kid I went to high school with got a part in that movie.
Wow.
If you've seen Teachers, and it's so old, and it's Nick Nolte and Jo Beth Williams. And there's a little nerdy kid who Jo Beth Williams walks in the bathroom, and he's sitting on the toilet, like reading a book. And then he also has one line as the nerdy kid in one of the classrooms. And his name's Andrew Ream, and I went to high school with him. So anyway, that's a long...
You're brushed with greatness.
That's a long way to go for that story. But yeah, she was in Teachers as one of the kids. And Wild at Heart, love that. So Wild, she's up this year for a well-deserved nomination. Mm-hmm. And Grizzly 2
Yeah.
is a feather in that cap.
And that's one where she is actually much better than most of the rest of the cast. She and Clooney both. They seem like very natural performers in that movie, whereas everybody else in the entire film. And there's some veterans. Nurse Ratched.
Louise Fletcher,
I forgot.
Yeah,
she's
an Oscar winner. She won an Oscar for that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. No, she did not win an Oscar for Grizzly 2. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, but The Bear is good when you finally see it. All right, that's of 87. So let's jump ahead to one of our other Oscar nominees this year to 1996.
Oh, yes. And The Dentist.
What's the matter? Well, what's the problem? Who are you? I'm Steve Landers. Dr. April's my client.
Steve?
Yeah, baby.
Yes, well, yes, she's had a minor reaction to a small dose of nitrous oxide, that's all.
Wow.
All right, that's some back and forth between the evil dentist, which is Corbin Burnson.
That's right.
By the way, and the guy he's talking to, Oscar nominee Mark Ruffalo. And that is one, we were talking earlier about a guy who just right away, that guy can act better than that. If you watch this movie, he really jumps out in that scene. Is that his only scene?
Yeah, he's got like a scene and a half, one in the waiting room and then one, inside the dentist's office back where his client is being abused. And it is really funny. It's toward the end of the film and you just all of a sudden you're like, what is this? Is that called acting? I mean, it's just so, what the hell? Oh my God. And he just looks so ridiculous. He's got like a pastel sweater over his shoulders. One of the things I think is funny about that movie is it actually came out in 1996. It looks for all the world like it was shot in 1984. I mean, everything is like mauve and teal and puffy shoulders and big hair. It's like, what's going on? But yeah.
And not to rip on Corbin Burnson too badly because he's serviceable.
He's fine, yeah.
But he's kind of putting it over the top in there, which is required of an evil dentist type role. Mark Ruffalo definitely has that look of a guy who's probably going places, and he did.
Yeah, he did.
And he's nominated this year for Foxcatcher.
He's great.
He's great. And that they're all three of them, the three main actors in that movie: Mark Ruffalo, Steve Carell, who's nominated as well, and Channing Tatum, who's never been better.
No, he has not ever been better.
Yeah, the true story of John DuPont and the wrestling team and the bad situation that went down there. If you're not familiar with it, but please see that movie; it's great. And Mark Ruffalo definitely deserves the nomination. But you look back at his resume, and of course he's the Hulk now in the Avengers, and that's big. But he's one of those actors that does that, kind of trades off the blockbuster, and then he'll go and do the small independent role, and that's where you really get a look at, where his talent. Not that he's bad as the Hulk, he's not. But it's the Avengers.
No, I agree with you. And he made a movie just a year ago, maybe called Thank You for Sharing.
Yeah.
Which was not a great film. It was not a bad film. It was about sex addiction. But he was just wonderful in it. Just wonderful in it. And that's the thing. I mean, he kind of always is. He was nominated for what?
The Kids Are All Right.
The Kids Are All Right.
Yeah.
He was great in that.
That was the one with Julianne Moore and Annette Bening.
Yeah.
And he's the
surrogate
father, the sperm donor,
right?
The children of the couple of which is Julianne Moore and Annette Bening want to find out who their biological father is, and
he should have been nominated for You Can Count on Me. He was so good in that movie
with Laura Linney. Yeah, and they were great. So yeah, he's one of those guys that's always good. And also this past year, it was the HBO movie, The Normal Heart.
Oh yeah,
right? Mm-hmm. Didn't he won? He might have won an Emmy for that, or was nominated, or
he won
a
SAG for sure.
Yeah,
I know he was nominated for a Golden Globe. He probably won an Emmy as well. I'm not positive, but he collected a lot of hardware for that.
One of those guys that just is always
good.
Impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read about him, not a Hollywood guy. He lives out somewhere in, I don't know, Montana or somewhere. I mean, he's
opposed to fracking. I know that. That's
he's like Woody Harrelson. He lives off the path, not on Sunset Boulevard or everywhere. But people get a hold of him because they know what a solid actor he is. And this is just another case because Foxcatcher is really, really good. But
The Dentist, on the other hand, is not. It's not good at all, actually. And this kind of disappoints me because I feel like they really missed a lot of opportunities for creepiness in a dentist's chair. I mean, they really did. There's a lot. Because going to the dentist,
so
you're
many
helpless, and you're paying someone to hurt you. There are so many places they could have gone with it, and they didn't.
So many people have a serious. My stepmother years ago would never go, just wouldn't go, and it showed. But she wouldn't go, and people are terrified of the dentist. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. There's some opportunity there to really, really mine for some terror.
And they chose not to.
No, and now if I think of a dentist scene, I think of Little Shop of Horrors and Bill Murray and Steve Martin.
Or Marathon Man.
That one, Marathon Man, yikes. Look that up if you haven't. Laurence Olivier given the treatment to Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it safe?
Is it safe?
Creepy. That's
is.
that's creepy dentistry at the height.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to do better than that.
Yeah. Wow, I forgot about that. Good call. So, the dentist from 96, Mark Ruffalo, coming in and just showing that, hey, people, I can act here, and I'm moving on. So, and then jump ahead to 2008, and a guy who is, if he's not really the it actor right now, I don't know who is.
Yeah, his third Oscar nomination in 3 years, Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper, who not very long ago, was just a few years ago, he was the lead. It's not like it was buried in a late scene. He's the lead in a film called The Midnight Meat Train.
What interests you?
The city. Because no one's ever captured it. Not the way it really is. That's my goal. That's my dream.
Then you're failing. The next time you find yourself at the heart of the city, stay put. Keep shooting.
And if that sounds a little bit familiar, then you've got an eagle eye, because Bradley Cooper in Silver Linings Playbook, which he was also nominated for an Oscar for, and well-deserved. If you notice, one of the scenes, they're standing outside
Such a great scene.
a movie theater, and on the marquee, what movie is playing? But The Midnight Meat Train.
It's so great because it's supposed to be Halloween night.
Yeah.
And you remember it's the stop harassing me, he's harassing me scene. And
Yeah.
he, just loses his mind standing out there. And just right above them on the marquee. Oh my God, I laughed so hard. That was so great.
Well done. So you can tell by the clip, if you haven't seen it, you can tell by the clip that and that was Brooke Shields, by the way.
That's right.
Talking to him. He's a photographer. And he ends up taking a certain picture on, it's a subway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wants to take photos of the underbelly of New York, and so he just starts hanging out in the subway very late at night, and then he starts realizing he recognizes the same person that just keeps showing up, and then kind of placing that person along with some missing persons, and then he gets all crazy. And the bad guy is a very meticulously clad butcher with a butcher bag. And you know what? Anytime you see a guy like that on a subway in a closed space, I think it's wise to be creeped out by him. It's a bloody, gory mess, this movie. It was written by Clive Barker of Hellraiser fame.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't generate any tension, though. The performances are not very good. Bradley Cooper is not good. He's very overacts. He really overacts all the way through this. Ted Raimi, horror film fans will know that name. Sam Raimi's brother, who gets killed in many, 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 many films. He gets killed in this when his eye comes popping right out at you. So there are some sort of fun reasons to watch it. And I've seen it on lists of underrated horror, but I would say it is not. It's underseen. A lot of people have not seen it. But it's not a very good film, particularly when you look at it. Clearly, they had some money to make it. I mean, it's well shot. They got a decent cast, and they got a great writer, obviously. But it's not a good movie.
And the funny thing is, you mentioned it. This was not many years ago. This was 2008.
And you know what? Even more recently, he made an even worse horror movie with an Oscar winner. How many people remember Case 39 with Renee Zellweger?
We do, because we were one of the 3 people that saw it.
God, that was awful.
It was awful. And you're just wondering, even at the time, you're wondering, why is he in this? Well, I guess they were dating at the time.
Yeah. But why was she in it?
I don't know.
Oh, God, it was so bad.
But it was bad. So Midnight Meat Train in 2008, and that was really right before he really got on the upswing.
Yes, it was, yeah.
He had that small memorable part in Wedding Crashers. Mm-hmm. And then for a few years after that, it's that guy in Wedding Crashers. And then boom, they started coming. And he's got the big movies and the Oscar nominations for American Hustle and Silver Linings Playbook. Before that, he, of course, was in the original Hangover, which to me is still one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. And part of it is the great performances by those 3 guys.
Yeah.
Even while you're laughing, those guys are great.
They are really
great. And they
great.
sell that script.
For me, the reason that movie works as well as it does is because it doesn't really matter which one of those 3 guys you're focusing on, because in every scene, it's not like the guy who's delivering the line is being funny. The other 2 are doing something hilarious simultaneously.
Yeah. So say what you want about the sequels, but the original, I think, still is one of the funniest movies ever made. And also, you can't talk about Bradley Cooper, especially this week, the news that came out about Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh, right.
Because the original movie was 2001, I believe.
I think so.
And if you haven't seen it, it's Bradley Cooper, it's Paul Rudd, it's Amy Poehler, it's
Janine
who am I forgetting?
Garofalo.
David Hyde Pierce from Frasier. A takeoff on these summer camp movies, and it's just a scream.
It's hilarious.
And Bradley Cooper is like the popped collar, preppy guy, and in the wants to put on a show.
Yeah.
And
It's like the musical director or something.
And it's just a scream. And the word came out this week that all the original people are going to come back and make it a Netflix series, which I cannot wait for.
Oh, no. That's
what they do
awesome.
with it now is going to be great. But that's kind of like a sidebar. But of course, this year he's nominated again for American Sniper. So well deserved. I know that movie has become so much of a political football. It's such a disappointment to me because it takes away from how effective the movie is when people bring their politics and their views on either side into it. It's a very effective movie, the best movie Clint Eastwood has directed in years. And Bradley Cooper, he's not going to win, but if he did win, I would say it's deserved. He is astonishingly good. Just so good. And if you haven't seen it, again, just blot out all the extra chatter you're hearing about it and go and decide for yourself. It's a great movie, and he's great in it.
It's absolutely the truth. And, what it was funny is because I don't think 10 years ago, obviously, anybody would have thought to themselves, Bradley Cooper's going to get 3 Oscar nominations in 3 years.
Yeah.
But he's really transcended that pretty boy, image. He's such a solid actor.
When I wrote the review of American Sniper for our blog, madwolf.com, 2 Ds, I said that. If you still think he's a pretty boy, please put down the People magazine and look at the resume that he's building here.
Just don't look at Midnight Meat Train.
No, but you know what? He's got enough success now. He can laugh about it just as we are. And Case 39. Let's forget about that one, too.
Yeah.
So there you go. Skeletons in the Closet, the 2015 Oscar edition. We got Patricia Arquette, Bradley Cooper, Mark Ruffalo, Laura Dern. And you know what? Every year, probably from now till I don't know when, you can probably find some of these skeletons in Oscar nominees' closets.
We'll help you dig them up. So
Nice.
check out the Skeletons in the Closet blog. We do it once a month for screenrelish.com. And then, of course, these podcasts we do weekly for Golden Spiral Media. And we only focus on bad movies just in the Skeletons in the Closet. Every other week, you're going to find recommendations for really great movies that you probably haven't seen.
Yeah, and if there's any that you think that we missed, you're probably right. So please let us know. We've got a great voice feedback line for you on Golden Spiral Media, and that is 304-837-2278. That's the way you do it through the phone, but also you can do it online as well.
Yeah, you can. Just try out and submit a feedback response. You can upload a pre-recorded audio file using the SpeakPipe widget to record an audio contribution, and this is on, again, goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback.
Yeah, so we love to keep the conversation going. That way, also hit us up on Twitter. We are at Mad Wolf. That's MADDWOLF. And as you can tell, we love talking about this stuff. And, of course, we love ideas for future podcasts. And please let us know what you're thinking and anything that we missed and anything Fright Club.
I just want to ask them, what is your favorite skeleton in the closet? It doesn't have to be an Oscar nominee, just a big star. It could be Angelina Jolie and Cyborg 2. Just what is it? What big star's bad early horror film do you love?
So there's a lot to choose from. So let us know, and we will definitely look forward to talking about it. So until next time, I am George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
And this is the Fright Club podcast on Golden Spiral Media. Stay frightful, my friends.